Now, right across Australia, Chris Smith filling in for Alan Jones.
G'day. Welcome to the program on fabulous Friday, December 15, 2017. Good to have your company this morning. Lots to get to, including your calls in a little less than 30 minutes from now. I promised to squeeze in some Christmas music on the show too. I'm getting emails from people saying, just a little bit. Well, we've been so busy over the last, 6 or 7 days since I have filled in for Alan. Just haven't been able to get to it. Not for want of trying, but we'll try additionally. As much as we've tried ever before, all right? We'll try and get that Christmas music in the show for you today. Only 10 sleeps to go for Christmas. Now, the sun rose in Sydney at 5:38. And it rises in Brisbane at 4:47 this morning. We should begin with our rain and temperature report. No rain to report yesterday. A bank of storms swept across Sydney late yesterday afternoon. It was all very dark, huff and puff, no rain. Sorry about that. The top temperature in New South Wales was 43.5 at Penrith. They're talking about a record maximum for December for that city. The low, 11 at Thredbo. And away from the snowies, it was 12 at Glen Innes. The top in Queensland, 44 at Ballera. Now, Ballera is right out on the border with South Australia, in the middle of nowhere. 44. Super hot. The low, 14 at Applethorpe. So that's what we can tell you about the last 24 hours. What we can say today, mostly dry across the country, including a lot cooler for Sydney, although the heat will be back for Sydney next week. A shower or two and a possible storm in Darwin today. In Canberra, showers. Partly cloudy in Hobart, mostly sunny in Perth, and a sunny day in Melbourne and Adelaide. Now for Brisbane, a mostly sunny day for our 4BC listeners, with a top temperature of 30 degrees, and then partly cloudy conditions across the weekend for you. For Sydney today, a cloudy day with a slight chance of a shower in the afternoon or evening, and the chance of a storm in the outer west. Southerly winds up to 35 kilometres an hour. They will ease, and then we'll have a top temperature of 26 degrees on the coast and 30 in the west. So still hot, but nowhere near like we had yesterday. It was a scorcher yesterday. Partly cloudy tomorrow, Saturday, cloudy on Sunday, and the hot weather returns on Tuesday and Wednesday. So be prepared for all of that. Let's have a look at the news front for this 15th day of December. And New South Wales Government Minister Gabrielle Upton has been accused today of a monumental backflip on her vow to beef up laws against inciting racial violence. Now, 2 years ago, as Attorney General, and I remember this happening, Ms Upton announced she'd crack down with laws to disarm hate preachers and violent extremists who preach violence. Now, this was in the wake of the murder of civilian police employee Curtis Chang. Ms Upton said in October 2015, recent events have reinforced the necessity of being vigilant to and guarding against the spread of racial vilification. And she said, we cannot allow violent race hate speech to fan flames of division and tear our community apart. It all made sense then, but according to the Telegraph, at a cabinet meeting 2 weeks ago, Ms Upton spoke out to stop the very same laws being introduced by her replacement, Attorney General Mark Speakman. Now, Ms Upton is understood to have argued it's not the time politically to introduce the laws after the decision to demolish and rebuild Sydney's 2 big sporting stadiums and the container deposit fiasco. What those 2 issues have to do with these laws, I've got no idea. No idea. Now, the Environment, Local Government and Heritage Minister is also said to have claimed that community groups advocating the law had gone quiet. And asked yesterday to explain the apparent change of heart, Ms Upton would only say, I've always been and will remain a strong supporter and advocate for the Jewish community. Come again? Strange strategies from the minister. Backflip with triple pike, that one. Now, the Commonwealth Bank has been accused of continuing to breach anti-money laundering laws, with claims it allowed more than $6,000 to be withdrawn from an account it suspected for months of belonging to a convicted terrorist. Now, as I foreshadowed yesterday, AUSTRAC, the anti-money laundering agency, has expanded its allegations against the country's biggest bank with new claims it failed to adequately monitor suspected terrorist finances, and that's financiers and organised crime gangs, and properly alert it about large transactions. And this is on top of claims the bank was involved in more than 53,000 breaches of the law. Now, in terms of the latest claim, the bank allegedly allowed the cash to be drained, despite having placed a stop on the account after several attempts to transfer money to Lebanon. So they were right across it all, but just didn't act. In an amended statement of claim filed in the federal court yesterday, AUSTRAC alleged the breaches began as early as December 2011 and were ongoing. Talk about asleep at the wheel. Now, voters go to the polls in the Bennelong by-election in Sydney tomorrow. This is super crucial. Super crucial for the federal government and, in particular, Malcolm Turnbull. Liberal candidate and former MP John Alexander has his nose in front of Labor's Christina Keneally, but the polls this week have suggested there's not much in it. Now, Mr Alexander has found himself on the front page today, which won't help him, over an investment property he bought in the New South Wales Southern Highlands. Now, Mr Alexander paid $4.8 million for the 40-hectare property in May and declared the purchase on the Parliamentary Register the following month. He said at the time he planned to use the property for short-term holiday rental and horse agistment purposes only. So he's made it quite clear what was going on. But Fairfax reports that while he's done that, he's never declared any income from the property, which reportedly rents for $1,440 a day. Now, he may have told the ATO, but he hasn't told the Register. The Parliamentary Register of Interest requires MPs to declare any other substantial sources of income. Now, I'll be speaking with John Alexander later on the program this morning, but not to Christina Keneally, who declined my invitation to appear, strangely enough. Just on Christina Keneally, and she's been accused of the lowest of the low acts for making comments about Industry Minister Arthur Sinodinos. Now, in a heated interview with Samantha Maiden on Sky yesterday, Miss Keneally was asked why she appointed the now-jailed Ian McDonald to her ministry. And she replied, well, ICAC has praised my evidence, and that stands in stark contrast to someone like Arthur Sinodinos, who sits in Malcolm Turnbull's own cabinet, who said, I don't recall so many times, who can recall how often he said it? Clever line. Now, Health Minister Greg Hunt, I think he's taken the wooden stick to this one, but he's described the comments as not only disgraceful but false. And he said that attacking someone who's undergoing cancer treatment, as the Senator is the lowest of the low acts. Now, ICAC last year found there was insufficient evidence that Mr Sinodinos, then a senior party official, had knowingly been involved in channelling donations to the New South Wales Liberals through the Free Enterprise Foundation. I think Greg Hunt's beating her comments up slightly. I think it's a fair recollection of the facts. He did say, I don't recall so many times we were perplexed. Now, it's been revealed, this is frightening, Federal Transport Minister Darren Chester was involved in what the Australian Transport Safety Bureau has described as a serious incident. The Australian reports the minister was on a light plane flying from Essendon to Sale in Victoria on November 10. The plane came in to land, but the pilot, reportedly distracted by a mobile phone, failed to lower the landing gear, and the aircraft skidded on its belly for up to 250 metres. There was only slight damage to the plane and no one was injured. That's a miracle, because at the end of the day, the plane could have caught a light. So the mobile phone got in the way of the pilot realising he better put the wheels down. You'd be dirty, wouldn't you, if you found out? It's been a big week for corporate news. As you know, we had Sir Frank Lowy selling his global Westfield shopping centre empire for almost $33 billion. And overnight, Rupert Murdoch has announced he's selling film and television assets from his 21st Century Fox company to Disney in a deal worth more than $68 billion. Incredible money. Disney will also buy Fox's international cable TV businesses while assuming close to $14 billion of the company's debt. That is a win-win for Rupert Murdoch. Still in the corporate world, and James Packer has paid an Australian record $60 million for 2 stories in his Crown Casino development in Sydney. $60 million. It's reported he'll spend several $1 million more in customising the apartment, which is understood is somewhere between the 40th and 50th floors in this 70-floor building. News of the purchase came as Mr Packer's Crown Resorts announced asset sales of close to $700 million. I guess what's $30 million for a floor at Barangaroo anyway. Cheap as chips, right? Different stratosphere. Let's take a break. We'll talk sport after the break with James Willis, including England's very, very impressive start in the third test in Perth. This is Chris Smith for Alan Jones. 6 minutes away from news.
And now a sports update for Swan Security. New wire-free, worry-free home security.
Look what I do for you, James Willis. Jonesy goes on holidays and you get 6 minutes to talk sport. He only gives you 6 seconds sometimes.
It's too much. I've only got two and a half minutes of material here, Smithy. You got a 3.5 minute song ready or something?
There's so much to talk about.
There is. Well, look, cricket. Now, you know what? Let's start with the story that is away from the action on the field. The timing of all this is pretty suspicious. There's a UK newspaper. England are down 2-0 in the series. They have to win at the Wacker. And a few hours before the start of the third test in Perth, a report comes out that there are Australian players allegedly involved in a match-fixing ring, as is an Australian official who's a former player. And these bookmakers have been filmed secretly by The Sun, claiming that they could fix sessions or even overs of the third Ashes test in Perth for up to...
Hold on. You're suggesting the real fix is the story itself.
Yes. Well, the timing of it is
to put off the Australians in the third test.
Doesn't mention any English players or the England team at all, but it says the Australian team is all involved in this. Anyway, $245,000 to fix overs or fix sessions. They've also said a number of Big Bash games have been fixed in the past. And according to these bookies, there is a former Australian cricketer who is working now as an Australian administrator who helps facilitate all these fixes with the players. The story is absolute nonsense. There's no evidence of it. And seriously, are you suggesting to me, because this wouldn't just have to be one or two players, the sort of elaborate fixing they're talking about would have to involve the majority of the team. They would all have to be in on it. And these bookmakers are saying we can predict the score, the number of runs, the number of wickets in a Big Bash game.
Well, I reckon it would not surprise me at some stage that we find out that some of these Big Bash games that are played in India are fixed.
And there's no question...
That wouldn't surprise me.
Look, there's no question this goes on, okay,
Yeah.
in world cricket.
And has.
But the Australian cricketers are the best paid athletes in the country. They're all on $1 million plus.
Yeah, they don't need this stuff.
No, they don't.
They don't need to get embroiled in this stuff. To think that they would somehow rig an over, both with the bat and the ball, in an Ashes series is just fancy.
No, and what they're suggesting is that a player would ask for a change of gloves, and that's the signal that the next over there could be only 4 runs scored.
But all I'm saying is to suggest that veteran cricketers who are probably playing their second last or last season in a Big Bash league in India, surrounded by the Indian environment, wouldn't be tempted is farcical, because I think some could and would.
Oh, there's no doubt. Now, illegal betting in India for this sort of stuff is worth $175 billion a year. And
big money.
That's where it's big, and you're right. And it's also the cricketers, for example, the Pakistanis that were banned a few years ago were earning $50,000 a year playing Test cricket for Pakistan. So they had some financial gains involved in that. Yeah. The Australian cricketers, give me a break. There's no chance this sort of stuff is going on.
Well, whether they've put them off their game or not, England are clearly in front here.
They are, yeah. They won the toss and elected to bat and made 4 for 305 at stumps on day one. Dawid Malan unbeaten on 110. That's England's first century in the Ashes so far. Johnny Bairstow looked very good as well, 75 not out. And Mark Stoneman, who opened the batting. Now, he spent about 5 summers playing Sydney grade cricket, so he knows our pitches pretty well. But he was controversially given out behind. The on-field umpire said not out, and they went to the third umpire, who ruled that there was some glove involved, a slight little snick. So I don't think there was enough evidence to overrule it, but he was given out. It was a tough day for us in the field, though. Mitchell Marsh dropped a sitter at first.
Absolute sitter.
Now, the oldest
you and I could have taken that.
Well, the oldest trick in the book, you learn this from under 10s. You use your hands under the ball, not over it. And Cameron Bancroft also put one down at third slip. So he didn't have a good day, but good to see England showing some fight final in the Ashes.
Could be 2-1. I know I'm jumping to conclusions here, but it would be nice for this series to be competitive. It would be nice for them to win in Perth, go on to Melbourne, go on to Sydney and have a competitive series.
Yeah, there'd be nothing worse than, look, I go out to the Sydney Test at the New Year. If it was 4-0 down to Australia, it's not going to be much fun. You want a competitive series for sure.
Very true. Graham Arnold, does he have the Socceroos job or doesn't he? And he's tried to explain this.
Yeah, Sydney FC are in action tonight against Melbourne City to start the new round of the A-League. This is at Allianz Stadium. All the talk is that Graham Arnold has been offered the Socceroos coaching job. He's denied the reports. Look, I was for an international coach, and I thought that was the best option. But after watching the Sydney derby last week, and Sydney FC smashed Western Sydney 5-0, if you look at their record, last 2 seasons, they've had one loss so far this year, one loss last season. They've won the Premiership, won the FFA Cup. I think Graham Arnold and the culture that he brings to Sydney FC, maybe he deserves a chance at coaching the Socceroos to the World Cup.
What about Gus?
Where is
I like Gus. Bring Gus back.
We're obsessed
and it
with
was
Gus. Where is Gus?
It was Gus with Graham Arnold, remember? That got us into the
that's true.
semi-finals.
Well, bring Gus back. You love Gus. Get
Gus.
on Twitter and contact Gus and see where he is.
We'll talk about Leighton Hewitt and the Australian Open in an hour's time. Thank you, James.
Thanks, Chris.
James Willis.
Chris Smith filling in for Alan Jones. Thanks to Vodafone. Want a no lock-in contract? See vodafone.com.au/plans. T's and C's apply.
I got to say, as you get closer to the end of the week on this shift, the beautiful cup of tea that I'm delivered each and every morning becomes even more treasured. As you get to about Thursday or Friday, the cup of tea becomes an elixir. Fantastic. Thank you, Paul. Now, I said I'd squeeze in some Christmas music. We'll do that in the next 20 minutes, and a chance for you to win some wonderful albums. Elvis, Christmas, Josh Groban's Noel, Christmas with Pavarotti, and John Farnham's and Olivia Newton-John's Friends for Christmas. 4 CDs. A chance for you to win those today when I play a little bit of music between now and the bottom of the hour. Gee, they stick tight in the ALP, though, don't they? Especially the Sussex Street brand of Labor, New South Wales. I was gobsmacked this morning to read that Richo, Graham Richardson, went into bat for Shanghai Sam Dastyari. Let me give you a flavour of what he wrote. The unravelling of Sam Dastyari has been an excruciating experience for his many friends. Over 2 weeks, his life has been picked apart. The gloves came off and Dastyari was politically assassinated by a gleeful group of government ministers and a couple of left frontbenchers who should have known better. I do not say this because Dastyari is a close friend, but because it is true. No other Senate backbencher has had a better first 3 years in the upper house than Sam. Well, that doesn't excuse, surely, the rubbish he's tried to get away with in terms of expenses and conversations and the backing of Huang Xiangmo. He could save kids in a road accident, and when he carries on the way he did, you can't excuse him for that behaviour. The New South Wales branch of the ALP is known for loyalty to its own rights, Richo. Just as tradition would have it, it attempted to circle the wagons around Dastyari. This time the Apaches had the numbers and the defensive perimeter was stretched too far. Well, he's right there. The New South Wales branch of the ALP stick tight. And he's doing it again here. But that doesn't excuse Dastyari. He did not explain the scenario of conversing with his Chinese donor and leaving their phones inside. He's never explained that. His statement to the Parliament started to focus on, I don't know special information, I am not a spy, etc. That's not what we're concerned about. We know we think you're just a big mouth, Sam, but why didn't you explain that bit? And why did you therefore hinder ASIO from their work? Of course he had to go. And it was his choice not to address these two. If he could have addressed these simply, it would have been a different story. But he refused to. And I thought that that cover-up after the act was worse than the act. You may have a view on all of that. Richo supporting Sam Dastyari today. Now, here's a question for you. Why do migrant kids in Australia always blitz Anglo students at English? Now, David Pemberthy writes about this today in The Telegraph, citing his experience when he left school in 1985. He wrote, My now bulldozed school was a great cultural melting pot with hundreds of migrant and refugee students. Cope they did. In fact, they blitzed it, so much so that when it came to handing out awards, every single proudly beaming face up on the stage receiving a medal was an Asian one. A couple of us honkies picked up the odd gong for punsy subjects such as drama, but when it came to physics, chemistry, maths, the no BS subjects, it was the Trans, the Wangs, the Mings, the Vings who filled the stage kicking Anglo butt. The story of migrant self-improvement is underscored by the release this week of the 2017 NAPLAN results. In many states, children who grew up speaking a language other than English are performing better than Anglo-Australians. So the question for you this morning is why? Why can't us Anglo parents prepare our kids to succeed like migrant parents can? Many of these kids start school speaking no English, David wrote today. By grade 3, they're the best at it. Why? 131873. Now, he does try and answer that. He says, my hunch is that Anglo-Australian kids are suffering from a whole bunch of negative linguistic influences, which can be summed up as a general lack of vigilance or care about the state of the English language. Maybe that happens at home. I'm picky about the English language at home, and I give my kids a headache picking them up on things that they pronounce wrongly or say out of context. Always do. But maybe Australians in general don't. If you've got a view, 131873. Now, on this jobs story from yesterday, 61,000 jobs created across the country last month. Unemployment rate plummeted to its lowest level in 4.5 years. 5.4% nationally. Incredible figures. 61,600 new jobs marked the biggest increase for any month in more than 2 years. And the Prime Minister said yesterday it equates to more than 1,000 jobs per day. That's impressive. And remember his election slogan, Malcolm Turnbull, jobs and growth. He certainly accomplished the jobs bit for sure, but growth, well, that's a work in progress. But seriously, does the Prime Minister deserve credit for these figures? There are various opinions on that today in commentary pieces in the papers. I think he does deserve credit, but are the stats a true reflection of what's happening out there, of what you've seen? Maybe as a small business person, are people easily finding full-time work? Are you easily finding people to fill those jobs? That tells me that there may be a discrepancy between the figures and what the reality is. Maybe those in the know can answer that question. And on the Christmas shopping front, are you ignoring the online world? Well, the Telly reports today that American internet giant Amazon's Australian launch has failed to put a dent in traditional Christmas shopping, with 9 out of 10 Aussies saying they prefer to buy presents in a shop. A survey of more than 1,100 people commissioned by DJs found 9 out of 10 were still doing their Christmas shopping in person in a shop. The survey found people wanted to see and touch the product. That is so right, isn't it? It is so right. I might buy things for the garage, tools, equipment for my motorbike, maybe something for the backyard that we need, a new hose. I might buy that online. That's fine. But in terms of 90% of the stuff we buy, especially at Christmas time, it's got to be done in a shop, doesn't it? Got to be done in a shop. Although maybe you've found the good stuff on the site Amazon and can let us in on a little bit of a secret this morning. 131873 is the telephone number. 17 minutes after 6, 17 after 5 in Queensland. Hi there, Del.
Hi there, Chris.
G'day.
I just remembered Mr. Richardson once saying, anything it takes.
Yeah, whatever it takes.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
Meaning that, you know what I mean. That,
well, he can't be serious in saying this is just all hot air and bluster from government ministers that remove Sam Dastyari. Sam Dastyari was removed because Bill Shorten wouldn't remove him and the public expected him to go. Am I right?
I think so. I believe so. And I'm glad I've had an opportunity to say that because, it seems that anything's okay as long as you get what you want.
Yeah. Yeah, the result doesn't always justify the means. Thank you, Del.
Thank you.
Good on you. Hello, Ben from Rose Bay.
G'day, Chris. I just want to call about, you were mentioning about the jobs before.
Yeah.
I've got a business in the city which is growing quite rapidly, and I tell you what, mate, finding staff has been so difficult, but particularly like local Australian staff, and the ones that I do find that I want to employ, they're just so unreliable, Chris. Like, last minute they'll call in sick or they'll leave or they won't come in. Whereas ones that are here on a working visa, who there's one particular I want to keep, which the government are giving me about a hard time on keeping, are so dedicated, so reliable,
Yeah.
so hardworking, and it's just, you try to do the right thing, but then you get let down.
Yeah, you are not alone on this. I don't know how many times I've heard from small business people saying exactly the same thing. And, it isn't a good reflection of the work ethic and responsibility in the current generation, is it?
No, it's not. And it makes it so hard for us to grow, Chris, as well as a business, especially in a new industry that we are.
Yeah.
And then especially when the government are changing the 457s, which, again, I'm all for hiring the Australians. And I wrote to Malcolm, because he's my local member. I've written to the small business, McCormack. I've been to all of them, and I get the same political jargon of they're doing this. And then they put this training fund in place, the 1.5%.
Yeah.
But then they're removing it from us, who wants to invest in our own staff, and we're going to go and invest in people that have no impact on our business.
Yeah.
And it's just not making sense. And this is coming from a right-wing Liberal voter, and I'm just thinking to myself, what is going on?
Yeah. Interesting insight. Thank you for calling, Ben. Good on you. All the best.
Thanks, mate. Bye.
Okay, Jason, hi.
Yeah, go, Chris. I love your show, mate.
Thank you.
Look, I just want to comment in regards to the reports coming out by Dispatch in regards to full-time work.
Yeah.
Yeah, look, I was living in Melbourne over the last 10 years, and especially within the transport logistics industry. Over the last probably 3 or 4 years, I was working as a casual base because I couldn't find work around my area. So I moved all the family up to Brisbane back in April this year.
Yeah.
Could not stop working. I'm doing 60-hour days and all that. So yeah, I think it's just the best we live around the country.
So say that last comment again. You think what?
Yep. I moved to Brisbane,
Yeah.
and work is just, I haven't stopped working.
So there's work out there to be done. There are opportunities, and you think that this has been reflected in yesterday's figures?
Well, yeah, and also to back it up as well, is if you go to the Port of Brisbane, around those areas, everyone's screaming for workers. So,
Yeah. Well, maybe the economy's a little better than what we really think. It's not showing in growth figures, but it's certainly showing in unemployment figures, and that's got to be a good thing, because the more people we can put in full-time work, the more their life changes for the better, and the more they can set themselves up for life.
Yeah, totally agree with you, Chris.
Good on you, mate. Thank you very much for the call. All the very best in Brisbane. Jeff, g'day.
Yeah, hi, Chris. How are you?
Very well, thank you.
Man, I'm just inquiring. I'm just talking about this petrol price. Well, I think we spoke a couple of weeks ago. We were talking about this petrol price. Now, Malcolm Turnbull is saying that this by-election coming this week, if Christina Kennelly wins, Bill Shorten will be very close to be the Prime Minister.
Yeah.
He doesn't understand or realize that Bill Shorten is already on his doorstep.
Yeah.
He's turning completely his blind eye towards the petrol price, where the people are really, really these service stations are pinching their pocket.
Yeah.
If he doesn't wake up to himself, or if he doesn't replace himself with our best Prime Minister we had, Tony Abbott, he will lose his election. Mate.
All right. Okay, Jeffrey, thank you very much. Things have turned around, though, for Malcolm Turnbull in recent weeks, both in terms of the citizenship debacle, where he was able to show that Bill Shorten can't be trusted, and then the tip is that Bennelong will be a win for the Liberal Party as well. If that is the case, he'll be on a high going into 2018, and maybe talk of him being replaced will quieten down completely. 23 minutes after 6, 23 after 5 in Queensland. 3 minutes away from news. Now, I've come up with a wonderful collection of Christmas CDs to give away to one listener each day, right up until Christmas Day. One of the callers...
Now, right across Australia, Chris Smith filling in for Alan Jones.
G'day. Welcome to the program on fabulous Friday, December 15, 2017. Good to have your company this morning. Lots to get to, including your calls in a little less than 30 minutes from now. I promised to squeeze in some Christmas music on the show too. I'm getting emails from people saying, just a little bit. Well, we've been so busy over the last, 6 or 7 days since I have filled in for Alan. Just haven't been able to get to it. Not for want of trying, but we'll try additionally. As much as we've tried ever before, all right? We'll try and get that Christmas music in the show for you today. Only 10 sleeps to go for Christmas. Now, the sun rose in Sydney at 5:38, and it rises in Brisbane at 4:47 this morning. We should begin with our rain and temperature report. No rain to report yesterday. A bank of storms swept across Sydney late yesterday afternoon. It was all very dark, huff and puff, no rain. Sorry about that. The top temperature in New South Wales was 43.5 at Penrith. They're talking about a record maximum for December for that city. The low, 11 at Thredbo. And away from the snowies, it was 12 at Glen Innes. The top in Queensland, 44 at Ballera. Now, Ballera is right out on the border with South Australia, in the middle of nowhere. 44. Super hot. The low, 14 at Applethorpe. So that's what we can tell you about the last 24 hours. What we can say today, mostly dry across the country, including a lot cooler for Sydney, although the heat will be back for Sydney next week. A shower or two and a possible storm in Darwin today. In Canberra, showers. Partly cloudy in Hobart, mostly sunny in Perth, and a sunny day in Melbourne and Adelaide. Now for Brisbane, a mostly sunny day for our 4BC listeners, with a top temperature of 30 degrees, and then partly cloudy conditions across the weekend for you. For Sydney today, a cloudy day with a slight chance of a shower in the afternoon or evening, and the chance of a storm in the outer west. Southerly winds up to 35 kilometres an hour. They will ease, and then we'll have a top temperature of 26 degrees on the coast and 30 in the west. So still hot, but nowhere near like we had yesterday. It was a scorcher yesterday. Partly cloudy tomorrow, Saturday, cloudy on Sunday, and the hot weather returns on Tuesday and Wednesday. So be prepared for all of that. Let's have a look at the news front for this 15th day of December. Well done.
Chris Smith filling in for Alan Jones. Thanks to Vodafone. Want a no lock-in contract? See vodafone.com.au/plans. T's and C's apply.
20 to 7, 20 to 6 in Queensland, and it's really good to have you with us today. Friday, fabulous Friday. Letters to the editor. A couple of quick ones. David Klein from Glenfield writes, it's great news that the New South Wales Senior Crown Prosecutor Mark Tedeschi has sent a blunt warning to fellow prosecutors about making soft on crime deals with criminals. The fact that he's gone to this extreme is an indictment on the Department of Public Prosecutions. Between an ineffective judicial system and soft sentencing judges and magistrates, the scales of justice have certainly tilted firmly in favour of criminals and left a horrific trail of devastated victims to pick up the pieces. That's from David. And Peter Fawcett from Dural writes, that time of the year again, time for a few days of relaxation and peace and quiet. That time of the year again when your neighbours feel it's time for the chainsaws, lawnmowers, whippersnippers, pressure blasters and leaf blowers in the battle for the most manicured gardens and the trophy for the highest decibel output. Happy Christmas, he writes. Come on, Peter, they're the sounds of Christmas. They're the sounds of summer. Get with it. A person has died in a house fire at Beerwah on the Sunshine Coast. Emergency services were called to the home on Beerwah Parade at about 6:20 last night. The house was destroyed and a body was later found inside. Investigations are continuing into the cause of the fire and the identity of the deceased person. Police are investigating a fire in Newcastle last night too. Emergency services were called to Macintosh Drive, Mayfield West at about 8:45 p.m. to find a factory well alight. Fire and Rescue New South Wales eventually extinguished the blaze. The building received extensive damage. The good news is no one was inside. Police are still trying to work out if the fire was deliberately lit. And a Sydney man remains behind bars after he allegedly sexually assaulted a woman, took intimate photos of her and threatened to release them if she went to police. Police have alleged the 24-year-old woman was approached by Jungjing Sim in Burwood in the early hours of Sunday when he demanded her bank cards and dragged her across the road. Within a 30-minute period, Sim allegedly sexually assaulted the woman, tried to strangle her and took intimate photos of her without her consent, according to a charge sheet tendered to court. He threatened to distribute the images to embarrass his victim if she reported the attack to police. That's what the document alleges. The 30-year-old, who is South Korean, did not apply for bail, and it was formally refused during a Burwood local court hearing. He's behind bars where he belongs, that bloke, I would suggest. And an investigation is underway after a man assaulted a woman on a train in Sydney southwest. Police have been told a man walked past a woman in the carriage of the train, which was running between Canley Vale and Fairfield at about 9:30 last night, before an argument took place. A short time later, the man returned to the carriage and sat next to an 18-year-old woman before punching her in the face and hitting her with a tripod. A number of witnesses went to the aid of the woman and attempted to restrain the man until the next stop. The man managed to break free and fled the scene. He's described to police as being of Asian appearance, about 30 to 40 years old, 165 centimetres tall and of medium build. He was last seen wearing a black T-shirt, black pants, black shoes, was carrying a grey and blue backpack, was last seen walking towards Smart Street in Fairfield. If you know anything about this scumbag, contact Crime Stoppers, 1800 333 000. Scum of the earth, 16 to 7, 16 to 6 in Queensland. Big day for victims of child abuse. The federal government's $500 million Child Abuse Royal Commission's recommendations will be officially handed down. Now, the final report from this 5-year inquiry will be released this morning after being handed to the Governor-General and tabled in Parliament. UNICEF Australia Director of Policy and Advocacy, Amy Lamouin, said all political parties at state, territory and federal level must show bipartisan support for necessary reforms and the implementation of the Commission's recommendations. She said we must ensure that where responsibility for implementing the Royal Commission recommendation lies at an institutional level, that all types of institutions in Australia are held to account to make improvements in their processes around child safety and responding to allegations of child sexual abuse. She's 1,000% correct. The inquiry is one thing. Acting on the findings is another, and stopping this awful trend of abuse in institutions. That's the main point. So over to you, Malcolm Turnbull. Now, this federal police strike force, which uncovered Australia's largest alleged white-collar crime and brought down a deputy tax commissioner, has ordered a Sydney woman to face court. Deputy Tax Commissioner Michael Cranston was suspended, as you'll recall, and later resigned after being caught up in a multi-million-dollar fraud operation. Cranston and 2 of his children, Adam 30 and Lauren 24, were among 10 people arrested after federal police from Strike Force Elbrus raided 28 homes and businesses in May. It followed an investigation into a $144 million fraud involving a syndicate of companies, straw directors and bank accounts. Strikeforce officers descended on a Bondi Beach street yesterday to search the home of a 31-year-old woman in connection with the investigation. Now, they seized a Subaru WRX, which they'll allege resulted from proceeds of crime. The woman was ordered to appear in Downing Centre Local Court on January 30, where she'll be charged with publishing false or misleading material to obtain financial advantage, police say. Now, reports in the papers today say the woman is Adam Cranston's wife. Police allege the younger Cranstons were part of a syndicate that stole from taxpayers to fund their lavish lifestyles. All 10 people arrested as part of the overall investigation are out on bail at the moment, and they await further court proceedings. Overseas, now 4 teenagers are dead and 7 others seriously injured after a train and a school bus collided outside a town in southwestern France. It's Perpignan is the town. TV images showed a long line of ambulance and emergency service vehicles near the crossing where the collision occurred. It happened overnight our time, Thursday their time. The Prime Minister described the crash as a terrible accident and said on Twitter he was heading to the scene, which is more than 850 kilometres from Paris. 7 people in the bus, which was carrying teenagers aged between 13 to 17, were seriously injured among the 19 aboard. We're told the train was running at 80 kilometres an hour at the time of the accident, and 25 were on board there. 3 of those were slightly injured, but those on the bus really copped it. Our thoughts are with our friends in France this morning. I spoke yesterday with the stars of the new Australian movie Swinging Safari, and it's set in Australia in the 70s. Cracking movie. especially if you lived through it and survived the 70s. One thing that struck me watching the film, though, was everyone was smoking. Everyone was smoking. Everyone. Well, new figures released yesterday showed just how much society has changed in that short period of time. 9 out of 10 New South Wales households are now smoke-free. In 1997, almost 25% of New South Wales adults smoked, but that dropped to 15% by 2016. The proportion of adults living in smoke-free homes is now at 94.3%. Now, what's called the Tobacco Snapshot 2017 found numerous anti-smoking campaigns, legislation, support programs for quitters and compliance requirements for the tobacco industry have all contributed to the decline in smoking rates. So we're giving up the darts, which has got to be a good news story. Together with this one, scientists say eating Vegemite leads to less stress and anxiety. Put the cereal down right now. Come on, put it down. Vegemite toast. The much-loved yeast-based Aussie spread is one of the richest sources of B vitamins available, and it's the B vitamins in the diet that fight depression, you see. So people who consume Vegemite suffer less stress and anxiety, according to scientists. They're Australian scientists, of course, who obviously eat Vegemite. They say they carried this out at Melbourne's Victoria University. They published this in the Journal of Functional Foods, and they labelled yeast-based spreads a cheap and easily accessible mood lifter. So regular consumption of yeast-based spreads, like Vegemite, may help to lower the incidence of anxiety and stress. So it's official. We are happy little Vegemites after all, as bright as can be. 10 minutes to 7 o'clock, 10 to 6 in Queensland. 6 minutes to news time.
And now on the Alan Jones Breakfast Show, the Stock Market Report.
Welcome to Friday, December 15. The Dow Jones is trading 54 points lower. The Nasdaq is trading 20 points lower. The Standard & Poor's trading 11 points lower. The Nikkei has closed 63.6 points lower. The Shanghai Composite has closed 23.9 points lower. The FTSE has closed 48.4 points lower. Oil is $74.28 Australian a barrel, and that is $56.99. 1 Australian dollar is worth 76.73 US cents, and gold is trading at $1,256 70 cents an ounce.
On the Alan Jones Breakfast Show, national weather.
In the top end, Darwin, a shower or two and a possible storm. Showers in Canberra, but that will be a great reprieve from yesterday. Hot in Canberra. Partly cloudy in Hobart, mostly sunny in Perth, sunny day in Melbourne and Adelaide. Brisbane, a mostly sunny day, a top of 30. Cloudy day for Sydney with the slight chance of a shower in the afternoon or evening. The chance of a storm in the outer west. And some winds today, gusting up to about 35 kilometres an hour. 26 degrees on the coast, 30 in the west. London, cloudy, 5 degrees.
The UK Report, thanks to Peters of Kensington. Open 7 days at Barangaroo, Birkenhead Point in Kensington. Or shop online at petersofkensington.com.au.
Good morning, Adam Gilchrist.
Hey, good morning, Chris Smith.
Let's go straight to the Grenfell Tower Memorial Service, if you can.
Yeah, you may remember the Tower fire in West London hitting the news, 6 months ago it is now. And today we had a memorial service. It was quite something, attended by about 1,500 people at St. Paul's Cathedral. And amongst others who were there, Prince Charles, Camilla, Prince William and Catherine, and Prince Harry, and the Prime Minister, Leader of the Opposition, etc. But also, of course, a lot of the survivors, a lot of the families of the victims as well. We know 71 people were killed in that tower fire, including 18 children. The youngest victim was Logan, a stillborn baby, and the oldest victim was Sheila, an 84-year-old woman who'd lived at Grenfell Tower for over 30 years. And it's very difficult, actually, to describe the impact that this fire has had. Of course, there are fires in all sorts of parts of the world, but this has had such a profound impact. There are people who live nearby who can't even look at the tower, and people who had narrow escapes, and others who knew. I mean, everyone in that community kind of knew someone who lost their life in that fire. So families were at St. Paul's today, and they kind of asked for the cathedral as well. They wanted the disaster to be marked by an occasion that would stand alongside a state funeral, if you like, and it was really impactful, I have to say.
Yeah, grief-stricken still after 6 months, which is understandable. Yeah. A new treatment for haemophiliacs.
Well, we talk about these amazing medical advances, and I mean, here's another one. In the words of the British doctors who are working on this, mind-blowing is how they put it. about an attempt to rid people of haemophilia A. Patients are born with a genetic defect that means they don't produce a protein that stops bleeding, hence the haemophiliac bit. 13 patients have been given gene therapy, and 11 have returned, if I can put it like this, virtually to normal, and all 13 have responded. The key to this is something called factor VIII, which is not produced naturally in haemophiliacs. This is a blood clotting thing, essentially. Right. So this research at St. Bartholomew's Hospital introduces factor VIII by a genetically engineered virus. Using a virus in a positive way, it's worked. Wow. And Jake Omer, one of the patients who used to bleed even when he just walked, he says he feels like a well-oiled robot. And there's a sort of born-again feeling to how people are describing their experiences. This really could be a major breakthrough.
Great news, great news. And finally, big wine glasses. Adam, what's the science say?
Well, you may have noticed, I mean, I don't know if this applies at home so much, but it's really a question posed rather than actual answers from researchers at the University of Cambridge. And what else do university researchers do other than look into the bottom of wine glasses? So what they've essentially worked out is that we're using bigger and bigger glasses, so are we consuming more. Fascinatingly, in the 18th century, the average wine glass was about 70 millilitres, which is weeny. By the 19th century, it had doubled. By 1950, it had pretty much tripled or quadrupled. The average wine glass now is pushing towards half a litre, certainly what you get in pubs and restaurants and so forth. And, okay, we don't tend to fill half a litre glasses right up to the top, but the point they're saying is it encouraging us to drink more? We're getting bigger and bigger and bigger with our glasses. And yes, less is more, but of course, if less is more, how much more is? And maybe we're guilty of that.
Maybe we are, and I think you and I know the answer to that. Thank you, Adam.
I'm just eyeing my glass as we speak. Perhaps I shouldn't.
Thank you, mate. Adam Gilchrist.
And now, a sports update.
James Willis, as my school cricket coach would say, drop catches, lose matches.
Yeah, that one from Mitchell Marsh was a shocker at first slip, but England were in real trouble at 4 for 131 after winning the toss and electing to bat. But this partnership has been outstanding. 30-year-old Dawid Malan. Have a guess where he's from. From that fantastic English nursery of South Africa. Another one. But he scored his first Test century and England's first of the Ashes series so far. He's unbeaten on 110, while wicketkeeper Johnny Bairstow is 75 not out. England 4 for 305 at stumps. Mitchell Starc 2 for 79.
Leighton Hewitt playing again?
Yes, so Sam Groth is retiring from tennis after the Australian Open, so Leighton Hewitt will pair up with him in the doubles, and there's some talk of him playing mixed doubles with Sam Stosur.
Yeah,
but he's back, another John Farnham.
Yeah, it's something to look forward to at the Australian Open. Great stuff. Thank you, mate. James Willis, 8.5 minutes after 7, 8.5 after 6 in Queensland. Thank you for your company this morning. Now, for Brisbane today, it's same as, mostly sunny day, a top of 30 degrees, and for Sydney, that heat wave has gone off the radar, thankfully. But slight chance of a shower in the afternoon or evening after a cloudy day, chance of a storm in the outer west, and some wind up to about 35 kilometres an hour. 26 is the top for the coast, and just 30 in the west, a reprieve from yesterday. Well, Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull is claiming credit for another surge in the number of Australians finding work, saying his government's policies are boosting confidence. New figures released yesterday showed a further 61,600 people joined the workforce in November, 3 times the number expected by economists. 3 times. It marked the 14th straight month of gains, a streak that hasn't occurred since 1994. In the past year, 383,300 jobs have been created, of which 304,700 have been in full-time positions. But strangely, ask anyone in business, as we do on the Open Line often, and they'll tell you a very different story. Small business owners call us here all the time for help to fill roles. And I know Alan often asks his listeners to help fill a job. It might be someone looking to get someone to fit tyres, a tiler, a fitter and turner, or a bookkeeper, and they rarely fill the role. You see, the government releases the figures, and they're produced by public servants, boffins, sitting at a desk looking at numbers. But it may be a different story in the real world. Robert Gottliebsen, writing in the Australian today, says consumers can smell that something is not right. They see in the media that unemployment is at a historically low level of about 5%, but that's not their experience in the real world. Instead, they see a vast number of people in all age groups who are out of work or who are underemployed. The truth is, unemployment, as calculated by the statistician, uses a methodology that is favourable to the government of the day. He says the real-world unemployment figures are quantified by Morgan Research and show that almost 1 in 5 Australian workers, 18.2%, are either unemployed or underemployed. That's the reality out there. Now, consumers know a technology revolution is coming and that the organisations they're working for are uncertain about what's ahead, so they're being cautious at the moment. It's all well and good to claim credit for jobs growth, as the PM has done, but we need to be prepared for what the workforce will look like in 2018 and beyond as well. Right now, though, the Prime Minister needs all the positives he can get, especially given tomorrow's crucial Bennelong by-election. 14 minutes after 7, 14 after 6 in Queensland. Well, voters go to the polls tomorrow in the Bennelong by-election in Sydney. And as I've been saying, this is super critical for the government and for the Prime Minister in particular. John Alexander won the seat for the Liberal Party in 2010, defeating Maxine McHugh, who'd taken Bennelong from the former Prime Minister John Howard in 2007, as you'll well recall. John won it again in 2013 and 2016, increasing his margin each time. But last month he fell foul of dual citizenship laws and had to resign. Tomorrow sees him taking on former New South Wales Premier Kristina Keneally. It'll be a close-fought affair, but the latest news poll this week had the Liberals in front by 53 to 47, and that's on the two-party preferred basis. A win for the government is vital because of their tenuous hold on power in the lower house. They currently have 75 of the 150 seats, needing 76 for a majority. Now, interestingly, neither of the major party candidates lives in the electorate, so we'll be spared the photos of them casting their ballots tomorrow on the evening news. And there's been controversy about both the main candidates, as there usually is. They're both high profile. Miss Keneally has been accused of the lowest of the low acts for making comments about Industry Minister Arthur Sinodinos, who's undergoing cancer treatment. I doubt whether those criticisms are valid. She's also repeatedly refused to say if she'll take over the Senate seat of Shanghai Sam Dastyari if she doesn't win tomorrow. I think you can take it as that is an option she might take. John Alexander, meantime, has found himself on the front page today, 24 hours before the vote, strangely enough, over an investment property he bought in the New South Wales Southern Highlands. Now, Mr Alexander paid $4.8 million for the 40-hectare property in May and declared the purchase on the Parliamentary Register the following month. He said at the time he planned to use the property for short-term holiday rental and horse agistment purposes only. Fairly transparent. But Fairfax reports that while he's done all of that, he's never declared any income from the property, which reportedly rents for $1,440 a day, and the Parliamentary Register of Interest requires MPs to declare any other substantial sources of income. Now, we've invited both candidates onto the program yesterday to come on this morning. Miss Keneally's Minders told us yesterday that unfortunately she is unavailable. I have received a message from her to say that it's pre-polling day and a very busy day and she's about to get out and about. Fortunately, that's not the case with John Alexander. He is on the line right now. John, thank you very much for your time.
Good morning, Chris. Well, I'm actually at Eastwood train station, so I've just got in a car. We are handing out, and then we're going to pre-poll, which opens at 8:30. Okay,
so you're busy and you started early. You've no doubt been across the story about your property in the Southern Highlands. How do you answer the claims that you haven't declared the rent to the register?
I've done precisely what was required in disclosure with the assistance of the clerk of the House. There's no requirement to disclose rent.
There's no requirement for any MP to disclose rent. It's not regarded as substantial income?
I have done, with the advice of the clerk, in filling out the form correctly, as Anthony Albanese or Tanya Plibersek or half of the front bench of the opposition and many of the back benches, you have to disclose just exactly the same with shares. If you buy BHP shares, you've got to say you bought BHP shares. You don't have to say how much, and you don't have to say what dividends you may receive.
I've got to ask you about the timing of the story. Do you think it's just a coincidence that Fairfax Media has published it the day before the by-election?
Well, it's strategically targeted. Otherwise, every other member of Parliament who has complied with disclosure, as I have, would have also been mentioned, but that wasn't the case, so it's strategically targeted.
Yeah, and I would have thought the person that's assigned this story should have known what the rules are about not having to declare rent.
Absolutely, and then as our media works, it gets repeated as reported. And that's what I'm up against, and that's been part of Labor tactics throughout this entire campaign, whereas we have presented a very strong, please look at our performance, whether it's my performance as a local MP or the extraordinary performance that we have had in creating jobs and growth. And the job figures that came out yesterday, the creation of 355,000 jobs in the last year, is a great performance of this government.
Yeah, you can't contest the fact that the slogan came out of the last federal election, jobs and growth. Growth is a little bit wonky. That's still a project in the making. However, jobs, an outstanding result, and in particular in New South Wales. The polls show the contest tomorrow, John, will be tight. One had you level pegging earlier in the week. Another had you 53-47 in front. How are you seeing things?
It is very close. We are fighting for every vote, as we have in every campaign. In 2010, we were enormous underdogs, and we worked and worked. I personally door-knocked 10,000 homes from February through until August the 20th, the day of the vote. We've done exactly the same this time. It's very different to a tennis match. In a tennis match, they called out the score after every point, after every game, after every set. You know exactly where you stand.
Yeah.
Even if you make a fault, they tell you it's a fault. You don't have another chance to get the ball in play. Here, there is only one score, and that is added up after 6 o'clock on Saturday, and then it will be delivered when the final count is made.
The electorate has a very big Asian population. You've had a lot of talk about cracking down on foreign influence and interference, particularly from China. Is that something people in Bennelong are concerned about?
Not at all. The people in Bennelong, especially small businesses who have benefited from the free trade agreements that we did with China, with Japan, with Korea, are delighted with that result. We have a great relationship with one of our strongest trading partners in China. We've got great diplomatic relationships, but here, especially in Bennelong, we have this extraordinary personal human relationship when people come from a country and make their home here, but maintain their culture, which we celebrate. We celebrate the Chinese New Year, the Lunar New Year. We celebrate the culture that has been brought here that's made this area really a poster child of multiculturalism, and it's one of the great joys of living and working in this electorate. And I did buy a house here. I did live in that house for some 7 years. I had 3 children and some of their partners who all vanished overnight, literally, so I took the chance, like many do my age, of downsizing. So I'm looking for a nice little apartment now, so you've got something there that'd be very handy.
Yeah. What do you think of this approach by your campaign to criticise Christina Keneally for her association with Joe Tripodi and Eddie Obeid when she was Premier? Given the fact that she's given evidence in ICAC and given them a big whack, is it falling on deaf ears, do you think?
Well, it's a historic fact, and when you're called to give evidence, you have to give evidence, and it's born evidence. So to do something that you have to do and then claim that this is a virtue, I know that's your obligation. But I think the greatest criticism that I would have of their campaign are the constant allegations that are simply incorrect regarding funding of education, which we have increased, various comments that we have cut funding from TAFE. The federal government does not fund TAFE.
No.
In fact, we have a $1.5 billion skills plan that is going to create 300,000 apprenticeships. So we are working in this area more strongly than anybody before us, and it's distressing, and I think it's distressing to the general public because they say, oh, we're tired of politicians lying.
Yeah.
And so I can hold my head high and say, judge me on what I've done, judge me on what I'm doing. I'm the one who saw the problem of home ownership. I'm the one who initiated the inquiry into home ownership. The market was being dominated by investors. Scott Morrison has reduced the capacity of investors to only being able to borrow 80%.
Yep.
You can only borrow 80%. You can only deduct 80%, given first home buyers the opportunity of accessing some of their super. Those two tools have kept the market stable, which is the first and most important thing, while bringing the first home buyer back into the market. This was a problem with Bennelong. I took it to my party. We've taken action, and we've got a result. And that's just one of many things that I've worked at constantly in the 7 years as the representative of Bennelong.
All right, I'll let you go and continue to press the flesh around the train station at Eastwood this morning. Thank you so much, and all the very best for tomorrow.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you for the time.
Okay, John Alexander, who hopes to win the by-election in Bennelong tomorrow. What a crucial by-election, not just for him, but for the Prime Minister of the nation.
Chris Smith, right across Australia.
25 and a half after 7, 25 and a half after 6 in Queensland. It's been a big couple of days for students who sat the highest school certificate in New South Wales this year. Yesterday they received their results. Today the students get their ATARs, or Australian Tertiary Education ranks, and that's the mark, in the words of one report today, that will get them into university. But we have to remember that university is not for everyone. It's not the be-all and end-all. Now, News Corp has the story today of Sydney graphic designer Lauren Nash. She finished high school in 2010, fell 5 marks short of the design course she wanted to undertake at the University of Technology. She says, I felt like I let myself and my parents down. Well, Lauren enrolled in UTS InSearch, a diploma program which serves as a pathway into a degree. While in her second year at university, she started to pick up freelance graphic design work for pubs and hotels. Well, she was swamped with clients, and in 2012 her creative agency Culture Fox was born, and then she had 5 clients on her books. Now she has 100, including the Hilton, Marriott, Four Seasons and Watson's Bay hotels, and Opera Bar at the Sydney Opera House. Again, it's not the be-all and the end-all. Stephen Cartwright is the CEO of the New South Wales Business Chamber. He's on the line. Mr. Cartwright, welcome.
Yeah, good morning.
What do you think when you hear stories like that of Lauren Nash? Really the perfect illustration that it isn't the end of the world.
Well, actually, what I think when I hear stories like Lauren's is that it's exactly what happened to me as well. I wanted to do law when I finished the HSC, fell short of the marks I needed. You know what it's like when you're a 17-year-old boy, you have other things you're interested in other than studying.
Yep.
And ultimately went off and did other things and entered the law school as a mature age student and ended up building my own very successful law firm. So it's not the be-all and end-all, and quite often, what you think you want to do when you're at school is far from what you're suited to doing or what you're going to enjoy doing. So it's not the determinant of how you're going to be in terms of success going forward.
Does the HSC prepare children adequately for the future, do you think?
Look, one of the things we have to be careful about is the fact that we do have a very good school system here in New South Wales. The problem is it was largely designed in around the middle of the 1960s. And the world has changed, as you know, considerably since then. It really is time for a bit of a relook at some of the fundamentals of how it works. But the real problem with Year 11 and Year 12, as we've sort of said as a society and as a nation, we're going to hold all these kids at school till they're 17, 18, the end of Year 12. Only about 40% of them go off to university. The other 60% either do vocational training or go straight into the workforce. There's no doubt that Year 11 and Year 12 is not adequately preparing those 60% of kids to enter the workforce properly.
Absolutely correct. They're not, and it's all geared up to get people into university. You're dead right. The students received their HSC results yesterday, get their ATARs today. A lot of happiness, but also a lot of disappointment. In broad terms, what's your message to those who are a little bit disappointed today?
Well, the first is don't let the ATAR define you, because if you want to pursue a particular career, there are ways of doing that regardless of what your ATAR scores are. The second, though, is have a look at the whole issue of vocational training, because the statistics will show you that after 6 months of graduating university, less kids get jobs than 6 months after graduating a vocational training program. And, you know, we are in dire shortage at the moment across this state of qualified tradespeople. It's a terrific career for people who are suited to it and who enjoy it. And I'd really encourage kids to have a look at it. It's not a second-rate choice. It's an alternative choice, but that can provide you with a fantastic lifestyle.
Yeah, very, very true. I'm glad you've issued that message, because I've had emails from disappointed and not so disappointed kids, and I just think at the end of the day, having been through life like you have, there's a lot more to life than your ATAR. Well said. Thank you so much for your time this morning.
My pleasure. All
right. New South Wales Business Chamber CEO, Stephen Cartwright.
Chris Smith filling in for Alan Jones. Thanks to Vodafone. Want a no locking contract? See vodafone.com.au/plans. T's and C's apply.
If you've got a birthday today, happy birthday to you. You share it with the likes of Australian former cricketer Greg Matthews. Mo is 58 years of age today. Tim Webster, part of the Australian Macquarie Media family with Talking Lifestyle. He is 66 today, Tim Webster, and a great fella. Tim Conway. Remember Tim Conway from McHale's Navy? He played Ensign Charles Parker in the 60s comedy, also on the Carol Burnett Show. He's 84 today, Tim Conway, born in Ohio. And a more sobering anniversary, it's 3 years to the day to the start of the Lindt Cafe siege, when Monash held hostage 10 customers, 8 employees at the Lindt Chocolate Cafe at Martin Place in Sydney. Hostage Tory Johnson was killed. Hostage Katrina Dawson was killed by a police bullet ricochet. Monash was killed. 3 other hostages and a police officer were injured by police gunfire during the raid. Spare a thought for those who are involved in all of that. 3 years on. Incredible pictures on the TV last night of a bushfire up in the Hunter Valley. You may have seen it. Firefighters say they've gained the upper hand on the blaze. The RFS issued a watch and act warning at about 2 p.m. yesterday for Lovedale as temperatures soared above 40. The fire engulfed more than 260 hectares as it moved southeast near National Parkland. Locals were told to prepare evacuation plans. Crews brought the blaze under control last night, thankfully, downgrading the warning to advice levels, and then a cool change swept across the area this morning. That will give them a further chance to extinguish the blaze completely. But it's a snapshot of what's ahead this summer, isn't it? Make sure you do have your bushfire plan ready, and if you need help with that, go to the website rfs.nsw.gov.au. And we're told a record number of patients high on ice are putting Queensland hospitals under severe stress. The surge in ice patients has coincided with hospital staff reporting unprecedented levels of violence, forcing administrators to roll out costly security measures, including 24-hour security officers. This is the flow-on effects of this epidemic. Queensland health statistics show ice-related hospital admissions in public hospitals rose as much as 60 times from 2009-10 to 2015-16. Total admissions in Queensland for that same period jumped 23 times, from 129 to 3,076. On the Gold Coast, admissions jumped from 18 to 406. In Mackay, from 2 to 124. In Brisbane's Metro South region, 24 to 907. Figures also reveal 1,120 physical or verbal attacks were reported in the Brisbane hospital region in the past 12 months. It's just unbelievable. There were incidents that have been aired, including a nurse being punched in the face by a handcuffed addict, a nurse being thrown onto her head, and an addict armed with scissors threatening to stab everyone in a ward. They get gripped with eternal strength. It's unbelievable. I'm sorry, but the stats prove that we have lost the war on this drug. Now, are you paying for your kids' prepaid mobile credit? Prepaying is a smart way to go, but not if you're putting up with 28 days of prepaid or a telco that cuts you short. Switch to 35 days expiry on Vodafone's prepaid $40 and over combos and get an incredible 35 gig of bonus data over 10 recharges. That's an extra 3.5 gig per recharge. And the best thing of all, 35 days to use it. The future is exciting with Vodafone. Are you ready? Recharge and opt in by January 31, 2018. Next 9 recharges by November 11, 2018. Terms and conditions apply.
Chris Smith, right across Australia.
Coming up to 7:15, 7 in Queensland. Well, this Sunday marks the 50th anniversary of the disappearance of former Prime Minister Harold Holt. On the 17th of December 1967, Mr Holt went swimming in rough seas at Cheviot Beach near Portsea in Victoria and was never seen again. And all sorts of theories, many of them crazy, were advanced. But a joint report by Commonwealth and Victoria Police submitted in January 1968 concluded there has been no indication that the disappearance of the late Mr Holt was anything other than accidental. The report found his last movements followed a routine domestic pattern, that his demeanour had been normal, and despite his knowledge of the beach, the turbulent conditions overcame him. And an inquest in 2005 found the same thing. Sam Holt is Harold Holt's son. And I've got him on the line right now. Sam, thank you very much for your time.
Good morning. Pleasure.
I understand you're in Portsea now. What sort of thoughts come to your mind about the events 50 years ago?
Portsea's such a beautiful place that it's hard to not be cheerful down here.
Yeah.
Of course, 50 years has gone past what was a very sad day.
Yeah. You were 28 years of age at the time. Very impressionable age, and of course losing a father like that, just horrific, right?
Yes, yes.
Now, I understand you were swimming yourself at the nearby beach of Sorrento when you heard on the radio that there was a VIP missing. You said, I noticed unusual traffic and ambulance, etc., and you had a feeling of foreboding. Explain that to us.
Well, there, of course, weren't any mobile phones in those days. No one could ring you. But I did hear on the radio that there was a missing VIP at Portsea, and I thought, well, I can only guess who it would be, and I could imagine it was my father. And so I rang to the phone box, the nearest phone box, and rang home where our much-loved housekeeper, Tiny, was there. She answered, and she just said, I'm sorry, darling, he's gone.
Dear, oh dear. He liked that area, didn't he? So it was a fair guess that he was there.
Oh, yes, he loved it, yeah.
And all the initial news, it was such headline-grabbing news, as it would be today if a Prime Minister went missing like that. And then the search, it was a widespread search, and then the waiting and waiting. You'd given up hope, though, by that stage?
Well, look, I was one of the last to give up hope. I think that it probably took me over 24 hours to fully accept that he'd gone.
Mm. He was famously cavalier about his personal safety and about security threats. Is that right?
He was very cavalier. He would swim where none of us would swim. Earlier that year, he had swum in the Hull River in North Queensland, even though he'd been advised that a crocodile had taken a calf from the banks of that river just several weeks earlier.
Oh.
His attitude was, well, it won't get me.
And his view was, in terms of security threats, if someone wants to kill me, they'll kill me.
That's right. So, of course, there wasn't the security in those days that there is today. There's basically no security at all. Our house at Portsea was never locked. It was never guarded. There was literally no security presence at all.
Extraordinary. Your dad was born in Sydney. I think he was 6 or so when his family moved to Adelaide, and then they moved to Melbourne. Where did the connection with Portsea come from?
From my mother, Zara, because her family, my grandparents, would take her and her siblings down to Portsea each summer. And where my mother and Harold and Zara met when Harold was about 20 as a law student, and when the family came down for holiday, they'd bring Harold with them.
Ah. And Cheviot Beach, a favourite place to swim for him?
A fabulous place when the weather conditions are right. When it's right, it's paradise. When it's wrong, it's no good.
Yeah.
A north wind and a low tide, you could take your grandchildren there to swim.
And, of course, he was so athletic. I read where your father represented the University of Melbourne in football and cricket, and he'd always been a great swimmer. He enjoyed water sports, didn't he?
He did like water sports. He was, in fact, not a great swimmer. He was an enthusiastic swimmer. Certainly tennis, cricket, those sort of things he excelled at. Swimming and golf he did not. But he was an adequate swimmer. And, of course, as a spearfisher, which is what he loved to do, you've got slippers and all the rest to assist you. So he was pretty good.
Yeah. And then after this period, the stupid theories started flying around. It must have sickened you to hear them.
Oh, well, we just thought they were ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. And occasionally we'd have someone put it to us quite seriously. Do you really think a submarine got in there or something like that? But, I mean, firstly, it's any naval person will tell you it would not have been possible to put a submarine there. And, I think people just couldn't accept that a prime minister could just disappear like that.
Yeah. And then there was a theory that may have upset you even more, that your father was depressed and took his own life. Like, how did anyone fathom that would be the way someone would take their life?
Well, it's extraordinary how people fathom these things.
Yeah.
As for suicide, he was absolutely of a disposition where that would not be conceivable.
Yeah. 6 months before he disappeared, he told you he'd been leading his government to the next election. Nothing changed to alter that view?
Nothing at all. His view was that he'd do another election, win that, and he would then at some stage he would retire from politics, and because he was still young enough to enjoy his life thoroughly. But it took until 1972 for the Liberals to lose an election. Things weren't as rosy as they were when he was at the helm.
Sam, Tom Frame, who wrote the book The Life and Death of Harold Holt, said your father was, for his time, our most progressive Prime Minister. But I guess the sad outcome is that we constantly talk about how he departed and not his political legacy.
Well, that is why from time to time, against my nature, I give a speech on this sort of thing. I am very keen that that people remember what he left behind in terms of policy after 31 years as a politician.
Yeah, and he was a cabinet minister at age 30, which made him the youngest ever federal minister. But his number one accomplishment, what would you regard that to be, Sam?
I think the commencing the dismantling of this White Australia policy.
Yeah. Yeah. And we should never forget that it was Harold Holt who was instrumental in doing so.
Well, that's correct. That's correct. He also, which is been a great success. He put together the National Gallery of Australia. He produced the Child Endowment for Children, where payment for the first time was made direct to the mother in the family.
Yeah.
And he led the referendum that enabled the Parliament to legislate in relation to Aboriginals. And without that referendum, you'd never have had Mabo and the land tax cases and all the rest of it.
Very, very true. Very true. I hope you can get through today with not too much sadness, but all the very best. Disappearing 50 years ago on Sunday, your father, Harold Holt, who we hold in high esteem. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for your kind words.
That's okay. Sam Holt and his father, Harold. Accomplishments we don't talk about, the way he disappeared we do. We're funny sometimes, aren't we? 7 minutes away from news. News in 2 minutes.
On the Alan Jones Breakfast Show, The Business Report with Ross Greenwood.
Ross Greenwood, they are mighty employment numbers, aren't they?
Oh, look, it really is impressive, and the government itself should take some credit for this, because it goes back to a lot of the idea to build more infrastructure around Australia, but also comes to the housing boom that's taken place. And so right now, even though the unemployment rate stayed steady at 5.4%, it's the fact that over the past year, you have seen 371,000 new jobs created, which is brilliant. But the most impressive part of this is that of those jobs, 303,000 of them are full-time jobs. So full-time jobs around the place. The underemployment rate is down. New South Wales, Victoria, the absolute keys to this because of the home construction and infrastructure as well. So it's, New South Wales, the unemployment rate 4.6%. So you've got full employment in New South Wales pretty much. And eventually what will happen is that you'll get higher wages and the government's bottom line is improving by the day as a result of this. You can almost pencil in tax cuts before the next election.
Yeah.
We'll see it, of course, on Monday, the mid-year fiscal and economic outlook.
Yeah, this Rupert Murdoch Disney deal, it's interesting, isn't it? In amongst all the detail is the fact that they will accrue almost $14 billion of debt from News Corp, from 21st Century Fox. Amazing.
It's just incredible. So a $68 billion deal that brings The Simpsons and Modern Family and Star Wars and the Marvel superheroes, Deadpool and Avatar, all into one thing. Trying to take on Netflix, trying to take on Amazon, that's what it's really all about. It's been an astonishing story, and ultimately the Fox shareholders get 25% of Disney. The Dow Jones Index of US shares down by 45 points overnight. Our Aussie dollar higher on those jobs numbers, almost a cent higher, 76.7 US cents.
Thank you, mate. Have a great weekend.
Same to you as well.
All right, Ross Greenwood with his business report. We are right on news time. 10 minutes after 8 o'clock, 10 minutes after 7 in Queensland. We'll open the lines to you in about 30 minutes' time, and I've got another one of those fantastic mini digital radios to give away to one of our callers as well. They're very generous this week. It's the spirit of Christmas, you see. Well, we're now less than a week and a half to Christmas. I'll say it again. Christmas. A celebration of the birth of Christ. I think it's been obvious that for the last 20 years, the politically correct brigade have been doing their best to erase Christ from Christmas. We're now greeted with happy holidays. In fact, I was reading yesterday the list of the top 25 Christmas songs, all the great tunes. All I Want for Christmas Is You by Mariah Carey, A Holly Jolly Christmas by Johnny Marks, Let It Snow, Sammy Kahn and Julie Stein, Last Christmas by George Michael. But the list of songs was under the heading Top Holiday Songs. I'm sorry, we've completely lost the plot. Then this story lobbed on my desk this morning. A light-hearted remark about wintry weather and a white Christmas at a UK university campus has sparked outrage. Staff at University College in London tweeted, "Dreaming of a white campus. Our campuses will be open and operating fully, so please make your way in as planned. We can't guarantee snow, but we'll try." Well, guess what? Students went berserk, demanding that the university retract and apologise. One wrote, "You know who else dreamt of a white campus? Hitler." And you know what the university did? Apologised, saying we chose our words very poorly. I had to check that it wasn't a joke. What a bunch of pedants. However, I was delighted this week to travel through Sydney CBD, where I saw banners everywhere wishing everyone a Merry Christmas. Now, I think we may have Alan to thank for that after he took on Clover Moore, the Lord Mayor of Sydney, when the City of Sydney went down the politically correct path more than a decade ago. Remember that? People have had a gutful of this PC filtering. We should be proud of our heritage, proud of our culture, proud to stand up for what we believe in, and proud of who we are. So, Merry Christmas. Now, fruit is certainly on the menu for Christmas time, and a couple of stories related to fruit today. More than 100,000 mangoes grown in Queensland have been recalled after fruit fly larvae was discovered. I love my mangoes, but I'm not too keen on fruit fly larvae. Biosecurity South Australia issued the recall when a person in the suburb of Hawthorne Dean reported the findings. Authorities say the recall was to prevent a full outbreak of fruit fly. Anyone who finds fruit containing the dreaded fruit fly should not throw it out or put it into their compost bin. Don't. Instead, you're supposed to place it in a sealed plastic bag and ring the fruit fly hotline. I didn't know there was one. And then they come and pick it up. 1300 666 010. The fruit fly hotline. 1300 666 010. Meanwhile, we're told this year's lychees are 4 times their normal size. I love a good juicy lychee. The massive red fruits are apparently flying off the shelf at shops and markets in Brisbane and Mackay. They're all locally grown and will set you back about $12 a kilo, but they're 4 times the usual lychee size and delicious. So if any of my Queensland listeners want to send a few down next week, I'm happy to put them away for you. Funny piece by Kevin Harris of Beecroft in today's column 8 in Sydney's Herald. Kevin was fairly impressed by the thoughtfulness of the Australian Electoral Commission, who took out a full-page advertisement in his local paper to inform the good people of Bennelong who the candidates are and where to vote at the upcoming by-election in Bennelong. Unfortunately, all are listed under the heading of New England by-election 2017. That's the AEC for you. New England. Couldn't organise a chook raffle. A small carnivorous marsupial thought to be extinct in New South Wales for more than 100 years has been found in Sturt National Park in the state's far northwest. The crest-tailed mulgara, known only from fossilised bone fragments, was discovered northwest of Tibooburra by a team from the University of New South Wales Sydney Wild Deserts Project during recent scientific monitoring. A mulgara. The experts say it's particularly exciting to find the marsupial alive for the first time in New South Wales. That's what you call a good news story. While we're talking about discoveries, astronomers in the US have begun an electronic eavesdropping operation targeting the passing asteroid named Oumuamua. Now, it's a bid to find alien life on the cigar-shaped celestial object. The organisers of what's called the Breakthrough Listen program started this operation on Wednesday at the Green Bank Telescope in the US state of West Virginia. Among the supporters are famed British astrophysicist Stephen Hawking. Now, one of the experts said after being examined for 10 hours, there seems to be no signs that this is something other than a chunk of matter in space. Last month, though, Oumuamua became the first asteroid observed by modern telescopes to pass the Earth, having originated outside our solar system. The 400-metre-long elongated asteroid has amazed scientists with its unusual shape. It's a cigar shape, basically. The Breakthrough Listen program is financed by Russian billionaire Yuri Milner, and he's dedicated it to the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, and he aims to monitor 1 million stars and 100 neighbouring galaxies. And congratulations to Cooper Cronk, who secretly tied the knot in Sydney last night with Fox Sports presenter Tara Rushton. Wasn't much of a secret by yesterday morning, though. The pair had been dating for several years before Cronk decided to relocate permanently from Melbourne to be closer to Tara, who is host on Fox Sports football coverage. She knows the soccer back to front. The guest list included around 50 people, including Melbourne Storm coach Craig Bellamy. They were married at the beautiful Jonas restaurant at Whale Beach, past Avalon, on the northern beaches. Been a big year for Cooper Cronk. He won another Origin series with Queensland, the Premiership with Melbourne, and a World Cup. He's already begun training with the Roosters after signing a new 2-year deal. And with Cronk and James Tedesco on their books, the Roosters will go very, very close to winning the Premiership next year. But congratulations to both Tara and Cooper on their wedding yesterday. Now, it is the season to be winning. It is the 12 days of Christmas, and over the past couple of weeks, we've been giving you the chance to share in over $20,000 worth of prizes. Today's final prize, a Spices Retreats luxury weekend valued at $2,500. Sounds great. And I should congratulate our final winner, Kristen Ella from Maroubra. Kristen Ella from Maroubra. You have won a luxury weekend away, Kristen, with Spices Retreats. You'll enjoy 2 magical nights at Spices Sangoma Retreat at the foot of the beautiful Blue Mountains. Spices Retreats offer a luxury experience like no other. If you're holidaying in Queensland, there's also Spices Peak Lodge Retreat, Australia's highest non-alpine lodge. Today is the 12th day of Christmas, and this one is thanks to Spices Retreats. You can visit the website spicesretreats.com. 18 minutes after 8, 18 after 7 in Queensland. This is Chris Smith for Alan Jones. 8 minutes to news time.
And now, a sports update.
James Willis back in the studio for the third time this morning, as a matter of fact. I mentioned, James, that Cooper Cronk and Tara Rushton have been married and they've been together for a while, which is why Cronk moved from Melbourne to Sydney and hooked up with the Roosters. And I was just thinking, it's been an incredible year, 2017, for both voluntary movements in rugby league and also forced movements in rugby league.
Yeah, so on the Roosters, first up, keep in mind Cooper Cronk has retired from representative duty, so he'll be focused completely on the Sydney Roosters next year. No Origin, no Test duties. They've also signed up James Tedesco, so the Sydney Roosters premiership favourites heading into next year. If you look at the coaches, though, there were 4 coaches sacked during 2017. Jason Taylor with the West Tigers after just 3 rounds.
That's right, I've
replaced
forgotten about that.
by Ivan Cleary. Neil Henry was sacked by the Gold Coast after round 22. Their new coach for next year is Garth Brennan, who's done a really good job with the Penrith reserve grade and junior sides heading through. Then at the conclusion of the year, Des Hasler was sacked by Canterbury. He's now in a massive legal dispute over unfair dismissal. He's been replaced by Dean Pay for next year, and Michael Maguire with South Sydney, replaced by Anthony Seibold, who I think the reports are he's doing some pretty exciting stuff with the team, and that fresh start may be good for South next year.
Yeah, let's hope that is the case. Now, back to the WACA. Gee, they're in a strong position, the Poms, at this stage, aren't they?
Oh, yeah, England won day one. There's no doubt about that. They were in real trouble at 4 for 131. They did win the toss and elected to bat, but the current partnership was outstanding. 30-year-old Dawid Malan scored his first Test century and England's first of the Ashes series. He's unbeaten on 110. His parents were in the grandstand watching on. Just have a listen to how he spoke about talking about making that first century in front of them.
You know, I didn't really know what to do, and when I got the 100, I was just so emotional, almost started crying, to be honest, when it happened. So, you know, and to do it in front of them, you know, the amount of sacrifices my old man and mother have made along the way to get me here has been, you know, great, and it's nice to do it in front of them and to sort of repay them with all the time they've given me.
As parents of cricketers who think that they're going to make the grade no, you sit for hours and hours watching your sons play cricket and then taking them to the game and then picking them up, and then there's training as well. It's a big commitment.
Yeah, full marks for him for speaking in the way that he did. He was, however, dropped on 92, a tough chance put down by Cameron Bancroft at third slip, while wicketkeeper Johnny Bairstow is 75 not out. England 4 for 305 at stumps on day one. Mitchell Starc, the best of the bowlers, 2 for 79.
Did you spot the fix?
Well, can we talk about that quickly?
Yeah.
This story is complete nonsense, and it's come out from the UK Sun newspaper.
You don't think they dropped those catches?
Well, come on. No, you shouldn't even speculate about that stuff. The Australian cricketers are some of the highest paid athletes in the country. Now, the suggestion is from this UK Sun newspaper, who published this a few hours before the start of a game that England had to win to keep the series alive. This was put out to try and rattle the Australian team, and this suggestion that 2 Indian bookmakers claim they have access to Australian players and can fix periods of games. A player could maybe call for a new set of gloves.
Poppycock.
And that means the next over, there'll only be 4 runs scored, is just complete nonsense.
Yes.
Match fixing does go on in world cricket, but it affects players that aren't on big money, and the Australian cricketers earn more than $1 million a year
There's
each.
no
so
point in
there's
being
no
private.
way that they would fix games. So you can
they would not want to have shame on themselves and their name for the rest of their lives either.
Yeah, that's right. It's a massive issue in cricket, but it doesn't apply to the Australian cricket team.
Have a good weekend.
Thanks, Chris. Really
Thank
appreciate
you.
it.
26 minutes after 8, 26 after 7 in Queensland.
The US Report, thanks to Peters of Kensington. Open 7 days at Barangaroo, Birkenhead Point and Kensington. Or shop online at petersofkensington.com.au.
Hello there, Harley.
Yeah, Chris.
The Federal Communications Commission votes to end internet neutrality. Explain, please.
Well, during the Obama administration, there were some rules that were, ordered by the FCC on internet providers in this country that said that companies like Verizon and Comcast and AT&T would not be allowed to slow or block websites and apps or charge more for faster speeds, that everybody had to be treated equally when it came to internet speeds. And consumers enjoy that and like that very much.
Yeah.
This throws all that out and really kind of gives them a pretty wide latitude when it comes to that sort of thing. Now, broadband industry is saying nothing's going to change. I think the fairest response to that is we will see. There will be legal challenges, but anytime so far, people have said to me, it's going to be free or it's going to be there's going to be no changes. I'll hitch up my britches a little.
Yes, very, very true. Now, the LA wildfire is still out of control.
Yeah, it's more than a week on the so-called Thomas Fire in Ventura County. Hundreds of homes have already been burned. Thousands of people have been displaced, have been evacuated. A couple 100,000 people were evacuated. The mountain ridges above Santa Barbara, Summerland, Montecito, they're in danger. They've got containment lines being built. They're digging fire breaks. They're setting small backfires, trying to burn up the fuel, all of those sorts of things. At the meantime, the winds are still blowing. We got 35-mile-an-hour winds coming up tomorrow, followed by, on Saturday, they think 45-mile-an-hour winds, and that could just ignite it. And here's what they said about it. When the wind starts pushing it, we can throw everything we have at it, and it's not going to do any good. If you look at the map of that fire, it's scary. It's really, really scary. It's a very big fire.
Yes, it's unbelievable how long it's gone on for. Okay, we're going to end our little time together, Harley, with a subject you and I love, which is the scientific world. Another solar system discovered.
Yeah, it's a record tying, actually. There are 8 planets found in this faraway solar system. That's the same as ours. We used to have 9, but they demoted Pluto. Yeah. So now we only have 8. In any event, this thing's pretty amazing. It's orbiting a star called Kepler 90. Now that's 2,545 light years away, which means about 400 or 500 years before Christ came to this planet, was born, walking the earth and all that. About 400 or 500 years before that is when the light from this star started in our direction.
Wow. So
that's a long ways off. And so it took that long for the light to get here. So that's how far away it is. There's Kepler 90I is the third rock from the sun. It's just like Earth, except that it's not just like Earth. It's a hot place to be. 800 degrees Fahrenheit. Couldn't be walking around there very long.
No.
That's for sure. I go up.
Unbelievable. Thank you, Harley.
Chris Smith filling in for Alan Jones. Thanks to Vodafone. Want a no-lock-in contract? See vodafone.com.au/plans. T's and C's apply.
Yes, they've given me one of these fantastic VQ Retro Mini Digital Radios again today for one of our callers. Between now, over the next 20 minutes, if you've got something to say, you are in the running to win the VQ Retro Mini Digital Radio. Great Christmas present, this, for those who love their radio, in particular this network. It's worth about $129, and it's a beauty. I've got a photo of it right in front of me. It's a little box. It looks very retro. Has a handle, small, not massive size, small, perfect for the side table in the bedroom or in the kitchen. Just great. 131873 is the telephone number. A couple of things I want to point out. We had a discussion with a listener after 6 o'clock this morning when I first opened the lines. And he was saying, I'm fed up with so much that's going on, and I've written to X and I've written to Y, etc., etc. Well, Brian from the ACT sent me this email this week. You mentioned on your program about federal politicians not listening or responding to emails. I know they're busy, but I've emailed some in the Turnbull government in 2017 and have never received a response except 1 or 2 auto-replies. I just wanted to tell them why a 70-year-old lifetime Liberal voter who spent most of his life with the Army is going to give Cory Bernardi a go this time round. A lot of my mates and people I meet in the bush feel the same way. So a question for you. Have you written to your local member? Have you written to someone in the Turnbull government this year and you've had nothing? I reckon that they are worth outing, those people who ignore your letters. You bothered to write a letter, they could at least send you an auto-reply, which is, well, on that subject, XYZ, this is what we've done. You know the auto-replies, you can just tell. But even that's better than not replying at all. Who doesn't reply? Who doesn't return the mail to their constituents? 131873 is the telephone number. Richo has gone into bat for Sam Dastyari today. Look, this is what the Sussex Street branch of the ALP does do, so I guess it's no surprise, but he talks about how he was assassinated, Sam Dastyari, by a gleeful group of government ministers and a couple of left front benchers who should have known better. And he talks about how no other Senate backbencher has had a better first 3 years in the upper house than Sam. Well, that's well and good. But we've never got an explanation from Dastyari about why he had to have a conversation with that billionaire donor outside of his Mossman house, and they had to leave the phones inside. Why was that? He's never addressed that. He just went on and said, oh, well, I'm not a spy and all that sort of... We know that. You're just a big noter. But what were you saying to him that couldn't have been heard by another person, which is why you left your mobile phones in there? On top of all of that, why, when you knew ASIO was following this bloke, why would you interrupt their investigation and surveillance of him? Now, if Sam had got on and been courageous enough to answer those questions, maybe we would have forgiven him. Maybe he might have stayed. But forget about how great he's been in the Senate. If you try and get away with this sort of stuff and you don't explain it, you don't fess up, you don't show courage of your convictions and courage of your misdemeanours, well, the public just go, get lost. We don't want you and we don't trust you. David, good morning to you.
G'day, Chris. How you going?
Very, very well, thank you.
That's good. I'm a long-time listener. I just wanted to give you a wish for a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Oh, very kind.
I listen to you on a daily basis.
Very kind.
I've got a small business and I run a little car repair shop.
All right, and you've got the radio up during the day, have you?
But, Chris, it's crackly all the time, mate, and I've been thinking about buying one of these digital radios for a long time. So,
how could I refuse?
Oh, that'd be fantastic.
How could I refuse? As long as you don't, get the digital radio and rip it onto Triple M for the rest of the year.
No, mate, it's on 2GB every day. So, I love listening to you. Enjoy your program.
All right, you're all right. Enough. You win. The VQ Retro Mini Digital Radio goes to you because I'm a sucker.
You're a good man. Thanks, Chris. I really appreciate it.
Good on you. All courtesy of Commercial Radio Australia. Say there, David. Oh, that was quick. The worst fears of the Queensland racing industry have been confirmed, with number one facility Eagle Farm ruled out of action for the 2018 Winter Carnival. Racing Queensland yesterday announced the track won't be ready in time for the major Group 1 races next year, which is a great pity. Now, Eagle Farm underwent a $50 million renovation, but then was declared unsafe in May, you may recall, with jockeys describing it as the worst surface in the Southern Hemisphere. Horses were pulling up lame, running 30 lengths last, forced organisers to shift the remaining meetings to Doomben, and Eagle Farm has been shut ever since. So we're told the previous Newman government is to blame after cutting corners during the redevelopment and using a poor quality of sand. So it's back to square one, which makes it a complete and utter joke. 131873. Hi, Joan.
Hello, Chris. How are you?
Very, very well, Joan. Thank you.
I wish you a very Merry Christmas. I'm a very, very long-time listener.
Oh, you're very kind, Joan. And Merry Christmas to you and the family.
Thank you. You probably won't remember because you take so many calls, but about 3 months ago I rang you with a sad story about Telstra, and I'd renamed them Telstress.
Yeah, I remember the call.
Telstra Richards. Anyway, good news. Maybe it's the Christmas, maybe it's Santa or the elves, but somebody has pressed the magic button because everything's working beautifully now.
Oh.
It's so fast, I can't believe it. And I don't want the NBN to come and ruin it all next year.
No, now that you've got it working properly. How long was it crook for?
It was not working for about 5 months.
Wow.
Yeah, and I was so angry and so frustrated and so stressed with them all.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't getting anywhere. But out of the blue has come this magic solution.
Brilliant. That is a good omen for the Christmas and New Year period for you.
So anyway, once again, have a wonderful Christmas period to you and your family. And I'd just like to say to everybody out there, I'm a Christian, I'm a believer, and I just think we've got to remember that Jesus is the reason for the season.
Yeah, exactly. There is Christ in the word Christmas. Thank you, Joan.
Bye.
Brilliant to hear from you this morning. Hello, Karen.
Oh, hello, Chris.
G'day.
I'm just giving you a quick call this morning to say that I'm feeling a bit sad because I wrote a letter to Turnbull asking him very nicely to resign, and he never
You don't think he had an excuse? I think he would have ignored all of those letters of resignation.
Well, it was a nice letter.
Well, how do you tell someone nicely to get lost?
Well, I gave him some options for other employment opportunities.
Brilliant. Like what?
Oh, that there's that poor old Murdoch had a couple of positions going and so forth.
Everyone seems to be going to Crown casinos of late, so maybe there was a job there for him as well.
Maybe, yes.
Brilliant, Karen. Thank you. Have a great Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Thank you. Fantastic. Didn't get a reply from Mal suggesting maybe he should go and find other employment. No, I think he's got an out for that, all right? You don't get a reply when you're suggesting you should walk. It's 11 minutes away from news. 7 minutes to news time.
An Ashes Series cricket update with Michael Hussey. Thanks to Red Rooster. Dinner's sorted with Red Rooster. Pick up or delivery. And Saxby's Stone Ginger Beer. The original and the best since 1864.
We've got him out of bed early because, bear in mind, he's in Perth, Mr. Cricket. Michael Hussey, good morning.
Hey, good morning, Chris. How are you?
I'm very, very well. You sound like you're outside. Do you get up like 5 o'clock in the morning and go for runs, do you?
No, I don't normally, but no, I've got up. I'm just taking the dog for a walk. So it's a beautiful morning over here in Perth. So, yeah, I'm actually enjoying it.
Oh, gee, you're keen. As are England, 4 for 305 and on top.
Yeah, they played well yesterday. Dawid Malan, we had fantastic innings, well supported by Johnny Bairstow. It was sort of in the balance, I think, at about 4 for 131. But it's a very, very good whack of pitch. The old pace and bounce. It was great to watch Tim Payne taking the ball right above his head. And it's the best time to bat. Once you get through that new ball and the pitch settles down a bit and you get in and set on it, you can score very quickly. So, all credit to England. They played really well. The Aussies, I thought they kept their task pretty well with the ball, to be fair. A couple of chances went down, which will be disappointing for them, and they'll need to really bounce back today.
Drop catches, lose matches, and I think there was probably 2 that should have been taken, and a third from Nathan Lyon. He got into the position and didn't get his hands in the right place. But I want to talk about Mark Stoneman's controversial dismissal on 56. He was given not out on the field. Australia referred it. The third umpire overturned the decision, and then you had the silly sign of the captain from England trying to get him to go back on the paddock. It was mayhem.
Yeah, it sure was. It was crazy, really, how it all worked out. It was a 50-50 call, really.
Yeah.
But Alain Dar, the umpire, the third umpire, should I say, he gets maybe some different looks than what is shown on TV, which probably is not the right thing. We need to make sure that we get to see exactly what he gets to see, and I want to have another closer look at it myself because I'm still not 100% sure myself.
Same here.
It was a little bit controversial, and England were obviously not happy about it. And gee whiz, they probably had a bit of a case there for a while. But I believe there's one angle that was sort of shown later on that does clearly show the ball came off the glove. So that's in the end the correct decision was made.
Right.
We still need confirmation though.
Well, that's reassuring. Just on this Sun newspaper investigation and the illegal Indian bookmakers and the so-called former Australian player, we know it's not you, right?
Oh, you're putting me in the order.
But listen, I wouldn't surprise me if washed-up cricketers who don't make a lot of money in a BBL playing in India get pressured to give a little bit of a few signs out there here and there, but not in Ashes, not from players and Australian players who get paid a hell of a lot of money and a lot more than you'd get by putting your hand up and saying you're going to hit a 4.
Yeah, exactly right. The players are paid so well, they'd be crazy to get involved. Plus the education process they go through these days, is really, really strong. Plus, if you get caught, the penalties are so strong. So I'm very confident that this is nothing to even consider. I guess for me, what stands out is when the Pakistani guys got caught, the paper knew about it. They waited for it to happen and then broke the story. In this case, nothing's happened, but they're trying to, break some story, which I'm not going to believe it until there's sort of hard evidence sort of come out. So, I would be very surprised.
Well, we're listening in, mate. Thank you very much. Look forward to day 2 with you and the team. Thank you.
No worries.
Mike Hussey, up early there. See, dedicated to cricket and dedicated to his dog. He's a dedicated sort of character. 131873. Bruce, g'day.
Hello, how are you?
Very well, thank you, Bruce.
I'd like to wish my beautiful sister-in-law, Mari Cashman. She's having her 80th birthday today. She's been a very supportive wife to my brother Kevin.
Oh.
She's got 3 children. They've got 8 grandchildren. She's been really beautiful mother to them.
Would she be listening right now, Bruce?
Oh, yes.
What's her Christian name again?
Mari Cashman.
Mari, happy 80th to you today. Please enjoy the day. And you'll help her do that sometime, will you, Bruce?
Oh, yeah, most certainly. Thank you.
That's great.
Great. Thank you very much.
Good stuff. Thank you very much for your call. Now, there are reports emerging that Tony Popovic, the Wanderers' former coach, has been sacked by his Turkish club already after only 2 months in the top job. We know he quit the Western Sydney Wanderers a week before the start of the A-League season, which was a shock enough. But maybe he has quit, do you think, because he's a real contender for the Socceroos job? That is very intriguing. We'll follow that space for you this morning and this afternoon. The first caller to the program this week was Pauline, telling us about how she uses a torch at night and doesn't turn her lights on because she can't afford the power bill. I've had Ian from Glenorrey cough up a gift for Pauline at the end of the week. Well done, Ian. Thank you. We'll get you in contact with Pauline and the gift will go straight to her. Brilliant way to finish the week. Thank you, mate. And thank you for listening. Ray Hadley is in next. To Paul and the crew who'll be taking time off now for their break, thank you as well, and well done for 2017. This is Chris Smith for Alan Jones.